Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. I am really excited about what we have to look at today. If you saw it a few days ago, I think it was Saturday, actually, this past Saturday, time of this recording, that I had received a box of goodness from Big Bad Toy Store, and this is one of the items that was in it. It was in a cardboard mailer box, so we didn't get a good look at the packaging, but here we are, Super 7's San Diego Comic-Con 2023 exclusive Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and some of you may not know, but if you've been watching for a while, you may remember that I'm a big fan of Godzilla. Godzilla was actually one of my first fandoms when I was a kid, watching these movies on Sunday mornings. Every Sunday morning, like Saturday morning was cartoons, Sunday morning was Godzilla. They would have one movie, sometimes two movies on back to back, and I just grew up like loving Big G right here. Now, this being the Comic-Con exclusive, I'm kind of doing what I did last year. If you remember, when I got the Super 7 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, the Blue Bat, for their G.I. Joe Ultimates line, and I was kind of using that to decide whether I wanted to get the G.I. Joe Ultimates. Ultimately, no pun intended, ultimately I decided against it. The bat just didn't really impress me, especially for $55 a figure, so I kind of just didn't get them. I'm doing the same thing with Big G right here, that I got this exclusive, and I'm kind of excited about the Super 7 Ultimates Godzilla line. Just not sure if I'm sold on it, and I'm using this as the deciding factor. What I've seen so far, because I'm going to be honest, I did pull the slipcover up already and take a look at it. What I've seen so far, though, kind of excited about it. Can't wait to get them out of the box. Trying to figure out if it's worth $85 a figure, because the Godzilla figures are expensive. Now, one thing I will give Super 7, they do not skimp on the packaging. Look at this. And to be honest, through the camera, this is not nearly as green on the camera as it is in real life. Like, this is very green, very comic book colors right here. And we got the King of the Monsters logo on the bottom. We have the surf splashing up top. Whoop, this is heavy. Up top, you can see we have the Ultimates logo, and the image continues with the wrap of his tail. The clouds up top. On the side here, we have some exploding scenery. On this side, we also have some exploding scenery. On the back, we have this great, just psychotic big eye looking thing right here. And this is fantastic with the blood coming out from like around the eye. Oh, this just looks so brutal. And I love it. Look at his eyes. The artwork on this is fantastic. Just look at those eyes. Look at how possessed and angry and just raging he is. Now, as I said before, this is just a big slipcover that this will come off. And there is our boy inside. Huge window box, so you can see what's going on in there. The light isn't really hitting it right, but you can see we have hands, we have additional heads. The green for the figure, unlike the slipcover, the green for the figure is pretty much on. I don't know if you can see it, but in the back there, we have the tail that's wrapping around. This is a very deep box, by the way. Just look at this. Give you an idea of how big this figure is. So we have like the broken mortar here, making it look like he's busting through this wall. There's blood stains all around it. Up top, we have just a slight window right here that's supposed to let the light come down through, but unfortunately, I don't have one directly above it to light that up. On the back, we have a great comic book image of Big G just destroying, I think that's supposed to be San Francisco right there, because if you read across the bottom here, after being hit with a poisoned dart, Godzilla is driven into a bloody rage and ravages the west coast of North America. For months, teams from across the globe try and fail to subdue the monster. Issue 1, King of the Monsters, published by Dark Horse Comics in 1995. That's how far back they're going for this image. And I didn't have those comics, but I can totally believe that this came out of Dark Horse just because of the color. Like, it's so, like, it's a dark green, but it's hard to describe. Like, it's a dark green, but it's like a vibrant dark green. So let's just get him out of the box. Let's take a look at him. Let's get a better look at him. And we will open this up and look at Super 7 San Diego Comic-Con 2023 exclusive Godzilla King of the Monsters. So before we get into anything else, I did want to show you that there is some assembly required with Big G right here. You can see that his tail, this big Horkin tail, is a separate piece, and it has to pop onto his butt right here, and it fits in. There we go. When you first pop it in, I don't know if you, oh, and it's in there too. When you first pop it in, I don't know if you saw, but like when you first pop it in and it first pops, there's some gappage going on right here, and it looks like it just hangs off of there loose. You kind of have to grab it, which does hurt a little bit because these spinies are hard plastic. And then you kind of have to twist it and push it in, and then it will meet up flush with the rest of Big G. And there you go. There's his tail. And that adds some weight to our boy. So I originally was going to have him facing the camera when I did the measurements on him, but I want to get not only the height, but the length for you as well. So that putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is pretty much exactly 8 inches tall to the top of his head right there. But then going from toe to tail tip, he is 15 inches from front to back. So, first of all, he's going to take up some space on your shelf. Second, there is some mass to this guy, and I can just say, there is some weight to him too. There is a surprising amount of weight in the tail right here. Now, let's just go into articulation, because I don't think I'm going to be able to bring him much closer to the camera than what this is right now. And before we do anything else with the main body, let's just look at the tail right here. You can see that there is articulation in the tail, but it's also kind of a little springy, that at least not now, it's not going to lay flat on the surface. It's still going to want to arch up a little bit. But there is a lot of articulation in this tail. Like I said, you can see that it turns at the ball joint right there. The back spines do kind of get in the way a little bit. But there is a decent amount of articulation. Now, you're not going to be able to get it to, like, come forward all the way and swat bad guys in front of him. But you can get it curled up like that. It sort of holds position fairly well, too. The only problem is that if it's not touching the ground, if it's not touching the surface that he's standing on, he is going to rock backwards unless you really, oh man, can you even compensate enough? No, that tail still wants to drag him down. So you kind of have to use it as a third leg, as a kickstand, if you will, right there. And you can see what I mean, like how this is, it's arched up, but you still have to have it setting on there. Now, it's not nearly as flexible as I thought it was going to be, because each one of these is a segment right here, and each one, you can see, will twist. You can get some decent whip side to side. Whoomp, 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 whoomp. But there's just so much in the sculpt of the tail that it doesn't really curl as much as I was hoping it would. I actually thought that there was just going to be like segments up to about this far, and then the rest of this was going to be rubber with just like a bendy wire in it. But each one of these, this two right here, two, and then one, all the rest of the way up. The tail tip is 3, and there's not a whole lot of movement in that. So the tail is what it is. I like it. It looks good. It adds a lot of weight to the figure, but I have a feeling that, like, pretty much no matter what you do, Godzilla's tail is going to add a lot of weight to the figure. Now, looking at him up front, he does have a head that'll do a full 360 spin. Has some pretty decent tilt side to side as well. That's it for looking up. He can look down to see who he's going to eat. There is a neck collar right here, too, that will also spin, but it gets a little stiff when it looks side to side. You can get some movement out of the neck joint right there, side to side movement, nothing front and back, mainly just turning to help him look more natural looking off to the side. I like that touch. I like that detail. I think that's really cool. The arms will do a full 360 spin. Amazingly enough, they can come way up past 90. I like that. There's no butterfly joint in there, but there is a bicep swivel. There is a single jointed elbow that he can get about 90 degrees. And like I said, and there's also a swivel at the elbow, below the elbow right there, that helps with some forearm movement. And then the wrists will spin and they pivot in and out. Now looking at the torso right here, you can see that there's a cut in the torso, and that will do a full 360 spin. But that's really all you're going to get out of it. There's no side to side, there's no front to back. It's just a spin, a twist right there, which I'm fine with. His legs, his big chunky legs right here, can come up to there. Can go back a wee little bit. That's it for coming out to the side. They can basically... Oh, wait, nope. Yeah, that's it. Then it pops off the ball joint. So they can just basically widen his stance a little bit, and that's about it. Now, he has articulated knees, but the knees are very interesting because they're actually bent. They come out of the box in the bent position that they only go forward. So that's them bent back, which is the position they're normally in, and then they can go forward that much. There is a hinge and swivel at the knee. The feet are big and a little clunky that they'll rock back. They'll rock forward. And there is a forward-facing pin for some rock. Now, this foot was fine. This foot, I was really sticking when I got it out of the packaging. I had to run it under hot water for a time because when I tried to articulate it, I felt like I was going to break it at the joint. That's how stiff it was. Something else that is interesting. Let's take a look at the sculpt now. That first of all, the sculpt and the color I really love. Now, I am fairly certain that this is basically just the body from Godzilla vs. Biollante reused. I'm not sure because I don't have Godzilla vs. Biollante. Depending on how this goes, I may be getting it. But I really like the sculpt. I really like the detail that you have in here. Let's try and zoom in a little bit on it. Oh, too much. I really like the detail, the scaling, the black wash that's over top of the green to make everything stand out. I love that the legs down here. Now the coloring is based off of the comic, but like I said, with this being based off of Godzilla vs. Biollante, the sculpt and the body mold itself is based off of the rubber suit that the suit actor wore in that movie, which is why, if you notice, the legs are actually different from side to side, just like it would be in that big rubber suit, which is interesting because you have to actually pose the feet at different detents to get him to stand flat-footed because of how different the sculpt is for each leg. The torso and the arms, you don't really see it, but you do see this great texture work, this great, like, veiny look to it, along the back, along his neck. You can even see some veins standing out in the dorsal plates right there. I'm really, really digging this thing. Let's bring this up a little bit. And let's take a look at this face. I think this face is fantastic. That might be a little too close. I think this face sculpt is fantastic. We can talk about the red for the blood later, but look at the eyes. Look at the detail on the face. I think this looks great. I really do. Like, I look at this and I can immediately tell you which version of Godzilla this is. There's no doubt about it. Now, because this is the storyline that it's based off of, I think they called this like the Thirsty for Blood variant, that obviously you have a lot of blood splashed around his mouth, down around his neck here. It's gruesome, it's brutal, it's grotesque, and I love it. I just noticed they even have like the little holes up in there for where his ears would be. I think this is great. I think this looks great. I really do. I really like the color. I really like the sculpt and the texture of it. This is fantastic. The thing that kept me from NECAs, and like I've looked at NECA's Godzillas and I've never really collected them because, I don't know, there was just something about them, and I'm not saying they're bad, but there was just something about them that like didn't really speak to me. The reason I think this one speaks to me is because this is based so closely and so almost devotedly off of the movie. And I dig it. I really dig that. So out of the box, Godzilla comes with these two sort of monster attack hands. He also comes with this pair of clenched fists, which I really like, that you can actually see like the claws curled in underneath like he's making the fists. I even really like the sculpt on the clenched fists here. I think this is a really nice touch. And finally, he also has a pair of these sort of gripping hands right here. And that also brings us to another accessory that he comes with, which I think is hysterical. This poor little pedestrian innocent bystander right here that is obviously not to scale with Big G, but it just fits perfectly. It fits perfectly in these clenching hands that, like, you can see his one arm resting back here, holding his hand out. Oh, let's get him in there. There we go. Holding his hand out like, no, please, not me. It kind of looks like Mr. Bill now that I think about it. But, like I said, it's not to scale, but this accessory cracks me up. I think this is great. One other thing that I want to draw attention to that I forgot to talk about when we were looking at like sculpt and paint job is I love the yellowing of the nails. They match the eyes down here on the toe talons too. That they didn't go for like just like a dark gray or a white. I love this yellow that like just matches everything, or just matches like the eyes and sort of ties everything together. Just the right splash of color. I really like this whole thing. Now, something else that he comes with, another accessory that he has, is this second face sculpt with the open rawr mouth. Now, the headpiece actually pops off very easily right there. You can see that we got a big dumbbell joint up in here, and then this just pops right back on, and there we have Angryzilla, open mouth, roaring, getting ready to hit you with the atomic blast. Now, some people would say that the two head sculpts are kind of a waste, that they should have just made one with an articulated jaw. And at first, that's what I thought too when I opened him up and I was looking at him. But there are a few things to consider. That first of all, with an articulated jaw, it usually doesn't look quite right because you don't get a lot of the detail you get with the secondary face sculpt, like with the tongue coming out a little bit, rising up off the bottom of his jaw. Also, if you notice, his brow is a little bit more furrowed right here, looking more angry, looking more ready to go. So I do appreciate the second face sculpt. And you can also see all of that blood just dripping down off of him. Like, this is just brutal and gnarly, and I love it. The only thing that I was hesitant about with the Super 7 figures, and this is the one area where I think that the NECA series has over this, is that so far with the standard releases, they haven't included any sort of like blast effects or atomic breath effect with Godzilla here. And that is a little disappointing. It really is, especially when you consider how many accessories Super 7 throws into their other Ultimates figures. And I know they said that they raised the price on these because of how much plastic is used in this. And I can understand that. And some people might say, well, their normal figures are 7 inches tall. Mac, this one's only 8 inches tall. Height is just like one aspect of it, because let's zoom out. Let's zoom out here again. That like height is only one aspect of it. When you just look at the overall mass of this figure, when you look at the mass and you look at like how much space this is going to take up, especially with the tail, I cannot stress how heavy this is. This is solid plastic right here. Like, I get why they upped the price on it, but as I said, it is disappointing that like they don't have any sort of like blast effects or atomic breath effects. And now for size comparison, let's put him next to a couple of other monsters. First of all, over here for size comparison, we have the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Doomsday. And over here, we have the Bandai Godzilla. I forget what this line was, but these are basically just vinyl figures, limited articulation. They're basically like statuettes. And this was the line I had collected for the longest time. And I still like them. I really do. They're nice. They're small. I think they look good sculpt-wise, but they're always very light on the paint detail. And there's no articulation, like I said, that you really can't do much with them. And as much as I do like the look of them, they're just really small compared to something like this. Here he is beside the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Stalker and Zartan. Here he is beside McFarlane Toys Medieval Spawn and Aridin Brioc Glass from The Witcher 3. Here he is beside Lanyard Toys City Hunter Predator and Xenomorph Drone. And finally, here he is beside NECA Toys Dungeons & Dragons Warduke and Grimsword. So first of all, let me just apologize that I wasn't able to get him fully on camera for a lot of this video. He's just really big, really chunky, really takes up a lot of space. And when you want to get in and look at him and look at the detail in the body, look at the detail in the sculpts, in the head sculpt, the tail, pretty much everything, you're not going to get him fully on camera. I do think that I am really liking this figure. I do think I am going to end up going in on the Godzilla Ultimates line, especially the first two that have already come out, which is Godzilla versus Biollante. Godzilla is pretty much, I believe, this sculpt, which I am fine with because this is a really good sculpt, but he comes with some, like, Biollante accessories. Biollante comes in her rose form, which is really cool. Like that, it has, like, those Audrey 2 snapper tentacles. That would be really cool too. I'm really digging this figure, and I think I'm going to enjoy the other figures that have come out. There is a lot of weight to him. There is a lot of mass to him. He's going to take up a lot of space on the shelf that I cannot imagine where I'm going to put all of these Godzilla figures in the event that I do go further and further along with the line. Having said that, one thing I do have to mention is that, like most, if not all, Super 7 figures, you can pop Big G apart and you can put him back in his box. It is very collector-friendly packaging. You may not be able to get all the twist ties back in there, but I really don't think you need those. I think those were more for shipping, that you can pop him back into the plastic and he'll stay put whenever you close the box up and put him on the shelf like that. He's bigger than the NECA Godzilla, I believe. He has more mass and just more presence, I feel, than the NECA figures. And maybe that's it right there. Maybe that's what I feel like the NECA Godzilla figures were missing. Presence. That, like, when I would look at them in the box, I would look at them and think, yeah, okay, that's Godzilla. But, like, it never really impressed me. This figure impressed me when I saw the promotional shots. Same thing with the Godzilla, once again, same thing with the Godzilla versus Biollante. That Godzilla impressed me when I took a look at it. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to go in on this line. $85 is a lot of money to spend on these figures, and that's definitely going to be a your mileage may vary type thing, that if you're not the biggest diehard Godzilla fan, these may be a pass for you. If you do like the Big G, and you're like me, and you've been waiting for something that has some size, some presence, some intimidation factor, this may be what you're looking for. Super 7 has always been limited on the articulation. I'm not upset about that with this, because it's Godzilla. Like, what are you going to do with Godzilla? He basically just lumbers, roars, and burns things. Having said that, I'm actually kind of impressed with the amount of articulation they got out of this big chunky guy, especially in the waist and the arms. The legs, there's pretty much nothing going on with the legs, but I kind of anticipated that. But as far as like as far as like the arms, head, neck, and torso go, there's a lot more going on there than I was expecting. I hope you enjoyed this one. I really do, because I enjoyed it. This was one that I had been really looking forward to. It got here much faster than I was expecting, considering that it was like a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you missed out on it, I'll put a link in the description below. I can't remember if he sold out or if Big Bad still has more that you can order. But if you're interested in it, I will put a link in the description below. Check it out. Like I said, might be sold out, don't remember 100%. But in the meantime, play well, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.